Welcome to our first seminar. This will be held at 12 p.m. every second Thursday, and it is recorded for anyone who can't make it. So you can listen back on your walk whenever you have time and just go through it. It'll be about 30 minutes, so we'll get straight into it because I've got a lot that I sort of want to get through. But we are going to start with something, the topic of just understanding the gut. So we hear a lot of things out there in regards to gut health and, you know, what's good for our gut health, what isn't. And it's definitely a hot topic. So I wanted to start with just understanding the gut a little bit further. So in terms of the gut, it does start with, let's just talk about our whole digestive system. So we obviously eat food. It goes into our mouth, and it is important to understand the digestive system from the very start because digestion actually starts from the mouth. So there are two types of digestion. So we have chemical and mechanical. So when you eat food, the chemical digestion will start with all those enzymes that are in your mouth that come from your saliva. And then you also have the chewing action. So that's your mechanical digestion. So gut health, it starts from the very, very start. So we want to make sure that we're obviously digesting our food properly. So we want to make sure we're chewing properly and we're actually having small bites of food because that has a really big correlation to how we feel after we sort of allow the food to pass through. So after you've eaten your food, it goes through those two types of digestion. It obviously passes through your esophagus and it hits your stomach. So just a little backstory so we sort of understand, you know, a little bit more of how food sort of moves through. In the stomach, you have obviously your stomach acid, so it's very acidic, and this helps to break down proteins. Then it moves through this word here, duodenum. It's just talking about the top part of your small intestine, and in your small intestine, as food moves through, this is where you'll have some other enzymes which are released that continue to break down food. Now, when people say, you know, the gut, they are mostly talking about the small and large intestines, as we can see here. So the small intestine is the major place for nutrient absorption, and then the large intestine is the major place where water and minerals are reabsorbed into the body. So just a little bit about our digestive system because, yeah, it does start from the very beginning, and gut health, like it does relate to everything as a whole. We don't look at anything in isolation. All right. Now, in terms of what can affect the gut, there are so many things. Obviously, there's so much on social media these days that sort of, you know, tell us, you know, what's good for us, what's not good for us, but it's actually like it's everything that comes together. So when we are looking at what actually affects the gut, there are things endogenously. So endogenously just means made within the body, and then exogenously, so outside of the body. So if we think of things like hormones, obviously that they are made inside the body, then they can affect our gut health. Then we have things exogenously, so things that may not always be in our control. They can be, like our food, exercise, hydration, stress to a certain degree. But then there are things that we can't always control. So you've got things like, you know, breastfeeding. You know, some breastfeed, some don't. Some were breastfed, some people were not. Birth mode has actually a really, really big effect on the microbiome of your gut. It's a very interesting topic. It's definitely being researched more now. Then we have things like our environment, so where you live. It sort of goes sometimes with that we don't even think, but things like pollution, you know, different areas where people live, whether you live closer to an industrial area or not, they can really affect the gut. And sometimes it's things that we can't see, so we don't really realize that they can affect the gut, but they do. Then we've sort of got this picture over here, and I guess what I really want to dive into is that there are so many things that affect the gut, but when it comes to this picture here, so this is obviously our gut, and this is our brain. Now, our gut and brain are connected via something called the gut-brain axis, which is this vagus nerve over here. So it's really important to understand, and there is more research coming out now, that nothing happens in isolation. So it's like a two-way street. Things that happen with the gut can affect the brain and vice versa. So, sorry, I'm just having a look at some of my notes so I don't go above and beyond. But so there are different things that can modulate our gut microbiome, and that just means change our microbiome. And we know that there are studies out there to show that brain function and even, cognitive disorders, things like ADHD, there is a correlation with someone's gut microbiome and, things like intestinal permeability as well, and inflammation. So I just really want everyone to understand that, it's not just a one-way street. It's a two-way street. And it's very, very interesting how so many things can actually affect the gut. So it's not just food, it's not just exercise. Yes, that is definitely an important component. But the way that we try to remain a little bit less stress, more stress-free. When people say, try and, before bed, just relax and put yourself in no blue light coming from obviously our phones, and trying to get out of that sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight. It really does impact things like our gut, because I think everyone can sort of understand when they've been stressed or something has happened. Whether, for me as an example, if I have an exam, you might sometimes feel a bit nauseous, feel a bit sick. Sometimes people run to the bathroom. So it really does show that there is a true connection there. And I think everyone can relate to that, because we're all stressed sometimes. We all eat foods as well sometimes that can make us feel a little bit unwell, but there's a really strong correlation between both, and that's something that's really important to understand when we talk about the gut, because nothing is in isolation. And if anyone has any questions while we go through, please just yell out. Now, when it comes to nutrition, so obviously nutrition is a big factor that plays a role in our gut health. And it's obviously something that we are really passionate about here at DVP. So nutrition can modulate the gut microbiome. So when we talk about gut microbiome, we're just talking about the little bacteria and the little organisms that sit within your large intestine. So they are very much alive, and they have such a big impact on how we feel. Now, nutrition is a very important part to how we can modulate, which just means like change our gut microbiome. Now, second point, in terms of structural damage or inflammation that can be present, nutrition alone, and we always say this to our clients, nutrition alone cannot heal or rectify these specific issues. That's where supplementation comes into play, and that's where our biochem reports actually tell us what's going on as well. So fermented foods, they're on the market. They are always spoken about. And I think there's obviously a lot of just a lot of people talking about, more fermented foods, what they can do for the gut, etc. Now, fermented foods, as the examples sort of show, a lot of you would probably get some into your diet without even realizing. So your Greek yogurt, kimchi, sauerkraut, kefir. What they do is they are pretty much like your strains of probiotics. They actually introduce microorganisms into your gut. Okay, so these are those little microorganisms, those little bacteria that we're talking about. So they actually introduce them into your gut. Same things as, when you buy little probiotics after you've been to the doctors, or maybe you've had a bout of antibiotics, or you've had you've been sick after traveling to places like Bali, and your doctor will say, grab some probiotics. You can naturally find them in some of these foods listed. So they're really important.
Ali, we can't see the foods listed.
Really?
Click on present in the top right corner for us.
Yep. Can you see?
No, you got to reshare your screen.
Okay. Can you see it there?
Yeah, so click on present for me.
Does it disappear?
There you go.
It keeps
Yeah,
going
so
up
we
as I
missed
change
the
the
slide
slides.
before.
Oh, did it? Is that
Yes,
what this one here?
it
I don't
was
know
very good.
Oh, well, I don't know why it sorry guys, I don't know why it keeps stopping because I did share, but yeah, so from before I was just showing you how the gut and the brain are connected via this vagus nerve. So this one here. And these are all of the things that can affect the gut. So I'm sorry about that. I don't know why. I'll make sure I check
Just
with you.
click backwards for us. Let me just make sure this is working. Click back. Are you clicking back?
Yeah, I already have. It must not be working. Can you see that?
Yeah. Yeah, we can see that one. Now click across for us.
Can you see
Yeah.
that? Okay.
And now go present. So yeah. So
It
every
keeps-
time you change the slide, just do that.
Okay. All right. So in terms of the fermented foods, that's what I was sort of speaking about here, those examples there. Greek yogurt, kimchi, sauerkraut, and kefir. Now, fiber. Fiber is really, really important. Now, we hear a lot about fiber. As females, obviously, we service mainly females, but not just. We always want to be getting look, there's that sort of number out there, about 25 grams per day. We like to see that a little bit higher. So, even 30 grams per day. And this sort of ties into number 3. So prebiotic rich foods. Some types of foods, some types of fiber can also be classified as prebiotic. Now, prebiotic and probiotic are different. Probiotic, as we spoke about, are those live microorganisms, the bacteria that actually reside in your gut. Whereas prebiotic-rich foods, such as certain types of fiber, they actually feed these probiotics and they help them to flourish. So certain types of food, like garlic, like onion, asparagus, artichoke, there's a whole range. They are prebiotic-rich foods. They actually feed these microorganisms, and then what happens is these microorganisms produce these byproducts. And these byproducts are really, really important for the cells in our large intestine. Okay, so they help them to flourish and to make sure that we have optimal health. So now going back to fiber, obviously, there are the different types of fiber, and we do want to make sure that we're getting a bit of both in our diet. So you've got your soluble fiber. Now it dissolves in water, so it becomes a gel-like substance. Additional benefits of things like fiber, we always hear it helps with estrogen excretion, because what happens is the estrogen or even cholesterol, it actually can bind onto this fiber, and then you obviously excrete it when you go to the bathroom. And then you've got insoluble. So it does not dissolve in water, but it adds bulk to feces. So you can go to the bathroom more comfortably, etc. So these are 3 types of food or groups that are really, really important when it comes to modulating the gut microbiome. And we should be getting types of these every single day. Now I'm going to switch, but I'm going to make sure all right, can we see that? I think. Okay, can we see that, Ness? The next slide?
Yes, all good.
Beautiful.
My favorite slide.
Beautiful. So now we're going into a bit of correlation to get a blood test. So obviously, as you know, when you come on board, we always do a biochem assessment, and that's because we need to see what's going on internally. Now, we get a lot of questions as to why, we need that hematology panel. So that's usually on your first page, and it's a panel that pretty much represents white blood cells and red blood cells. Now, it's important to note that 70 to 80% of your immune system and your immune cells actually resides within your gut. So that's why we look at this panel to sort of indicate where your gut health status is at. We don't look at it in isolation. We can draw correlations from other parts, but it does show us give us a really good indication of what's going on. So as we can see here, you've got just 3 types of white blood cells. So we've got your monocytes, eosinophils, and basophils. Now, in short, a little summary here. So your monocytes, they're all types of white blood cells. These cells help to fight against inflammation. infection. So, whether you've had a little parasite after going to Bali or whatever it may be. Then eosinophils, so they respond to antibodies, which are produced in response to an antigen entering the body. So if something enters into your body and it's foreign to the body will actually produce an antibody to fight against that. And then your basophils, probably arguably one of the ones that are quite elevated in individuals and clients who have poor gut health because of the reasons that we spoke about. So these contain histamine. So you would have heard of histamine when it comes to like allergies. Histamine is a compound which is associated with inflammation. It's associated with permeability of the gut lining. So permeability, whenever you hear sort of permeability, it just means that you've got your gut lining and you've got cells that sort of sit closely together. Now, when you think of permeability, this lining shouldn't allow things to really permeate through. But when you've got this permeability, it means that these cells are not as closely packed together. So things can move through. When I say things, I mean either bacteria, parasites, like really small food particles, obviously in your digestive system. And when that happens, that's what will lead to symptoms that you're feeling. So, bloating, having the runs, all the pain, like a lot of really pain in your stomach. So when we look at gut health, we like to look at these three markers, and it just gives us an indication of where your gut health is. So if they're excessively high, that's when we know something else is going on. And this is where we put into place, some nutritional protocols and supplementation protocols we need to actually fix that gut lining. We need to rectify the gut lining first. So I'll sort of go into my last slide because it does help me explain. So lastly, but it sort of ties into what I was just talking about with the blood markers. So when we put protocols in place, I hear a lot of people about, I need to be on a low FODMAP diet forever. It's definitely not what needs to happen. So what we need to do is we obviously put you on a low FODMAP diet or structured eating plan. And that helps to relieve symptoms whilst the underlying work is being done. So whilst we have the supplementation and whilst we have, like the bone broth and all these really, really important aspects go into your plan to actually rectify things like your gut lining, going on the low FODMAP diet can help to not resolve issues, but just to manage the symptoms so that we don't have excessive inflammation. And you obviously, we don't want you to be going through all these terrible symptoms whilst we are doing the underlying work. So when someone says, a low FODMAP diet is a structured way of eating, from now for forever, it's definitely not. It's just something we put in place for a period of time. Now, the Monash website for FODMAP, it's really, really good. I popped the link there if you guys want to have a look, but it goes into a lot more detail. But pretty much foods high in FODMAPs, what they actually do is they can draw water towards them in the small intestine and they ferment within the large intestine. So when that happens, that's what's causing these symptoms. So when water is drawn to the small intestine, that's when you get things like runny stools, like having to go to the bathroom ASAP. And then when it goes into the large intestine and it ferments, we know that fermentation produces gas. And that's when you might feel that really uncomfortable distension of the stomach. Obviously just those really uncomfortable symptoms that they don't go away. So I just wanted to point out the type, like what actually FODMAP actually stands for. So you've got fermentable, like we said, oligosaccharides. So pretty much they're just long chains of types of fructose joined together. Disaccharides, like your lactose. So again, not everyone is going to experience symptoms because of each types of these groups of foods, but they are types of foods that can cause majority of people issues if there is that underlying gut issue. So diet saccharides and monosaccharides. So pretty much they're just single units of sugar. Disaccharides, di mean two, so just 2 units of sugar put together. And then you've got your polyols. So things that are using like your artificial sweeteners, your sugar-free, fat-free options. They're just pumped with all those sorbitol, mannitol, and having those, they'll definitely lead to some gut issues. So that's why, having always those sugar-free, low-fat options because you're in a calorie deficit might not actually benefit your gut health. And that's something that's really, really important to note. But that sort of brings us to the end of our first presentation. Hopefully that was helpful. And I guess, as we do continue to move through, I will base presentations dependent on what sort of questions people have, or topics that Ness and I have, sort of seen a lot of. So if you do have any questions, feel free to ask away. Otherwise, you can pop it in a message to Ness or I, or in your communities chat. And that will just shape the next seminar in 2 weeks' time, so we can touch on topics that you guys are really interested in. Any questions from anyone at all? Oh, thank you, Andrina, for that really nice message.
I knew you would like that, Andrina. I knew you would like that one.
I'm glad you did that.
If you've got any topics that you want covered, please let us know. We tend to go based off what is coming through on check-ins, and that what we feel people need a better understanding. I guess why we decided to put in these seminars is because we feel that where we want our clients to thrive is we want you to become your own experts. And in order for you to become your own experts, it's really important that you understand how the biochemistry of your body works and responds from a nutritional perspective, supplementation perspective, performance perspective, because all of these things really do matter, because it's not just about getting the result in the moment. Like, everyone loses weight on our programs. There's both Fran and Shua use well over 10 kilos down now. Everyone can get the results, but what will help you maintain it long term when you finish up with DVP is most definitely if you understand how your body works internally. So please, if there's anything you guys want to learn more about from a gut health perspective, even covering cortisol, anything like that, just let us know. We're really, really open to suggestions, and we're guided by you. Don't be shy to ask Alex pretty much anything. We've got a couple of minutes, so if anyone has any questions, go right ahead.
If not, though, all good. You can always message me or message Ness, and we can answer all your questions, even in your check-ins. I always say to my clients, pop in as much info or any questions that, even if you see something on social media, because there's so much there these days, pop it in your check-in. I can always pop it in a slide in the next fortnight and we can address it. Just so we can sort of debunk some things that we see out there, because there's a lot.
Don't forward it to me on my Instagram. I don't manage my own Instagram account, and most of the times I'll miss it. So definitely in your check-ins.
Yep, absolutely. But I think that'll wrap us up if there's no questions.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you guys for coming. And we will see you in the next one.
Andrina, do you have a question? Did you put your hand up, or was that a bye?
No, that was a clap.
Oh,
thank you.
Was that with a hand up?
You're the best. I love it. All right. Thanks so much, ladies. Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everyone.
Bye-bye.